Okay, so welcome to this fireside chat. We are very fortunate today to have with us Joel Salomon. He is the author of 2 books. The newest one is called 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use, but only the unconventional ones. It reached #1 in personal finance and self-help last week, right? When it was released. So congratulations, Joel. Super awesome.
Thank you.
And we're definitely going to talk about the book and some of those money rules that the millionaires use. We all want to know those. But I wanted to start out finding out a little bit about your background, because I find it fascinating that I met you a few years ago at the Omega Institute at a sort of spiritual mindset kind of seminar. And yet you're this Wall Street guy, you're this hedge fund guy, you know. I think you were probably the only of your type in the crowd there. So
Right.
I found it very interesting. So can you just kind of like set us up with your background and your story?
Sure. So I had a dream. I was working as an actuary, and some of you may know what an actuary is, but I describe the difference between an actuary and an accountant as an actuary looks at his feet when he talks to you, an accountant looks at your feet when they talk to you. They say an accountant is an actuary with charisma. So you know how outgoing we are. But I'm not the typical actuary. And I had a dream working after I became a fellow of the Society of Actuaries, going through all the exams, that I really wanted to align my hobby and my career, and my hobby was investing. And so I asked actuaries on Wall Street, how'd you get there? What'd you do? There weren't too many of them at the time. This was 25 years ago. But finally I got one who gave me his path to take. And so I started on that path, although I was getting a lot of people who would date my friends. They said, Joel, you know, you're making over $100,000 at 27 years old. Why would you want to quit a job that was #1, by the way, on Forbes magazine in the early 1990s as the best job in the country? So got a lot of doubt. I teach people now, I teach my clients to doubt the doubt, #doubt the doubt, because why is the doubt right? Have faith in your dreams and desires. So I did, although I didn't know what I know now. It took me 15 years to get there. And I did become a portfolio manager for Citigroup, hedge fund manager in January 2008. Some of you may remember, not the best time to start managing money. In fact, the stock market was down 40% that year. Financial stocks, which were the only stocks I was managing in 2008, were down 57%. And my former colleagues at Citigroup tell me that I have to tell everyone in the world, as much as possible, I did make a little bit of money in 2008. Survived, made a little bit more in 2009. I can tell you how and why. And then in 2012, there was a rule that was passed that said banks can't own hedge funds. They shut my group down. Everyone was laid off, which really get me the kick in the butt to do my true dream, which was to have my own hedge fund. So I started my own hedge fund in 2013. 3 years later, I went to a conference, had an epiphany, and shut it down because I figured out what my true purpose in life was, which is to help people become financially free. I'm now on a mission to help at least 100,000 people become financially free. And I became a prosperity coach about 2.5 years ago. And I teach people how to change their mindset around money. I teach people how to shift their limiting beliefs to empowering beliefs around money, how to use their intuition. And then I also teach some of the nitty-gritty processes and procedures that maybe some financial planners and financial advisors also do, although I will tell you I don't sell insurance or annuities or mutual funds or stocks or bonds. I don't sell anything, actually, any product. Well, I sell books, I guess now, but I don't sell any other products. And I teach people about investments. I teach people about personal finance, about credit card debt, student loan debt, how to get out of that debt, how to get closer to financial freedom, what your financial freedom number is. And I teach people about those unconventional money rules that most people, I think, don't use, don't know, and we'll get them to financial freedom quicker. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome, Joel. Thank you. And I want you to tell the story about when you're starting the hedge fund. And, like you kind of alluded to it before when we were talking to Michael, but you really didn't have much going on at one point, and that must have been a very scary time. So I want you to talk about that and like what you did to get through that time, and it worked. So get to the good part too.
I will. So yes, as I said, my dream was to start my own hedge fund. That was my true dream. And after we got laid off from Citi, to be open with you, I looked for other jobs. And I wasn't getting much success, despite the fact that I had made money in 2008, 9, 10, into 2011, and did very well in 2009 and 10. But I was not getting many offers that were reasonable job offers. And finally, it hit me that what I'm really supposed to be doing is starting my own fund. So I started talking to insurance companies that knew me because I had invested in them. So I knew the CEOs, CFOs, chief investment officers, and I got 2 people to actually commit orally to give me money from their companies. And I then went about the process of starting my hedge fund. I hired a lawyer, an accountant, I hired my fund administrator, I hired a prime broker. I even signed a contract to move into real estate space, 54th and Madison Avenue. I felt like I'd arrived. And within 2 weeks of moving into that commercial real estate space, having a view of Madison Avenue, both those companies backed out. I had no money. I had no pipeline because I figured, well, definitely getting these 2 companies, and there was a large amount of money behind those companies. I thought I was all set. So now I have all these expenses committed to a contract, real estate contract. I was actually in the midst of about to hire my analyst, and I had been interviewing CFOs as well for my hedge fund. So what did I do? Now, I could have given up. I could have said, well, this wasn't meant to be, but I actually had absolute faith that this was what I was supposed to be doing because it was my dream for so many years. And here I was on the cusp of achieving it. And I had all the experience and knowledge, and I had the context too. So what did I do? I acted as if we already had the money. I teach people now to act as if. So how did I do that? Well, I continued the interviews with my senior analyst, and I hired a senior analyst, although I said to him, look, can't pay you right now, but when we get the money, I'll start paying you. So he came on board, and we started having our morning calls as if we already had the money, talking about different stock ideas. We went to conferences, met with the companies we were invested in, quote unquote. And I did something even more crazy. I put together a spreadsheet and I calculated the performance of our portfolio as if we were already invested. And I say to my analyst, Sean, we had a great day today. Keep it going. At the end of the day, after I calculated our profit. Or if we had a loss, I'd say to Sean, hey, you got to do better. Maybe we should reconfigure. What should we do with this stock? What should we do with this long or this short? And we acted as if for weeks. And now I continued actually while I was doing that to go out and try to raise money, of course. I didn't just sit at home in the office and act as if. And a few weeks later, we had a good meeting. And on February 25th of 2013, we got a commitment letter from another insurance company saying they agreed to give us money. Now, I truly believe to this day, by acting as if we already had the money, we got the money. And we launched in June of 2013.
That's a great story. And I know that all entrepreneurs understand, like Michael was saying, trying to hire a salesperson when you can't quite afford it, and, being in that position. Was it hard to get people, your team, on board with you? Did they think you were crazy for, doing this when there wasn't any actual money? Or how did you get them to go along with this idea? And how did you keep yourself in it for long enough to actually see real results without losing your faith?
Yeah, it's just what I teach now to my clients. I know better now than I did then. And there were days, clearly, that I had doubt, but I kept on persevering. Persistence is a really important attribute to have when you are driving towards your dream. And I surrounded myself with like-minded people who supported me. I didn't really hang out with the negative people who were bringing me down like 25 years earlier when I started going for the dream of being a hedge fund manager. I had a lot of doubters earlier, and I realized that it's very important to surround yourself with supportive people. And I hired my CFO actually before we actually had the money. Now, she saw the contract that was signed, but there was no guarantees that the money was going to come in. There was a lot of legal work that had to get done between February 25th and June 13th when we launched. But she believed in the process. Obviously, even once we had the money, we had to perform, and we did. We were up 10% in just 6 months in 2013. Had a great first 6 months, annualized over 20%. So, yeah, having faith in your dreams and desires. Now what I teach my clients is do affirmations. So I have a series of affirmations at the end of my book in the 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use. I also have affirmations on my website for free. If you go into the programs menu under manifesting. So my website, by the way, is JoelSalomon.com or Salomor. That's SALAURMOR.com, which is my company name, named after my daughters, Lauren and Morgan. So you can get those. And I also have audio files that you can listen to for self-doubt, to improve your self-esteem, for motivation that I've recorded. If you can deal with my voice every day, you'll get inspired, I think.
That's fantastic. And yet it sounds so simple. Talk a little bit about how powerful the mind can be when it can actually block the energy of money coming to you if you don't have the right mindset. I believe that this is true. I think you do as well. I'd like you to try to explain why does that happen? How does that happen? And how can we make that shift beyond what we've already talked about?
I talk about how money is just energy. You could argue that everything's just energy when it comes down to it. We're atoms, this material body, furniture, pieces of paper, it's just energy. And when I talk about giving in the 9 money rules, so giving is rule number 6. And the chapter is, if I give my money away, how do I have more money? I have less money. So when I talk about giving, I talk about money is energy, because people say, well, I'll have less money. But when you're putting money out into the universe, when you're giving it away to charities, to people who are less fortunate than you, then you're creating flow. And by creating that flow, it must come back to you. And what's also happening is you're shifting your mindset to be more abundant and prosperous. You're creating this feeling that you have plenty to spare and share. And so that, from my perspective, makes it more likely that money is going to flow into you. I mean, there are people who just hoard money and think, okay, well, if I just save all of it, I'll be fine. But that actually works against you, because I talk about investing rather than savings, putting it out, investing in companies or investing in real estate, creating new businesses or helping create new businesses. Companies need capital to grow. Maybe it's a commercial real estate company that needs capital to grow, or a commercial real estate property, or residential real estate. So there are ways to put the money out into the universe that creates more flow for you, and it's just energy. And when you detach from that and say, okay, it is just energy, it's nothing more than that, then it flows even more to you. And yes, you can create resistance by thinking about or worrying about the lack of it. So again, we talked a little bit about doubting the doubt. So I teach people that thoughts are things and your beliefs are powerful. And if you believe that money is limited, like I was taught growing up, we can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. That's too expensive. I got screamed at whenever we left the house and I left the light on in my bedroom. And that is a lack mentality. That's a scarcity or poverty conscious mentality, as opposed to having a prosperity conscious mentality. Like, we can't afford that. Or I tell my daughters, that's not a priority right now. Doesn't mean you can't afford it, but you can if you save for it and you work for it and achieve the goal. So think about how you're considering money. Do you believe that when somebody else gets more, you have less? Well, that's a scarcity mentality. I believe that abundance is created every day, and lucrative opportunities come my way every day, and I'm a money magnet. And if you have that mindset and you write these affirmations down, and I teach my clients to write down from 1 to 10 what their level of belief is in each of these abundance affirmations that we go over. And it's okay if you're not at the very high level of faith. If you say, I'm an excellent money manager, and you're like, no, I'm not, that's BS. You're 1. Well, there's 2 ways to deal with that. Don't say it, because you got your mind countering it every time. Or you could say it 1,000,000 times and get your subconscious to believe it. So there's 2 ways to go about creating the belief, right? So first of all, say those affirmations that you do believe in, and work on getting your belief level up in the ones that you don't have. And that's a way to eliminate or reduce the resistance you have to generating more money that comes into your life.
See, I think you're so interesting, because you come from this sort of like traditionally conservative industry. This money is traditionally very not enlightened, at least from what I've experienced. So it's really interesting to hear your perspective, yet you have all the knowledge of what it's like to invest and manage funds and things. Very, very interesting. And some of what you just said now about like not saying things like we can't afford that kind of reminds me of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where I think he talks about saying like, well, how can we afford that? What plan can we put in place so we can make that happen? Which is just another version of what you just said.
Absolutely.
So it's like successful people do know these things. And that's, we are going to get to the book, because that was obviously the inspiration for your book. but it's just fabulous that you're able to, like, consolidate that information and share it so that we can all benefit. But I have a question that I think is relevant to small business. So all of this sounds great, but there's cash flow. There's bills to be paid and bill collectors calling. And like, how do you deal with it when there really isn't sufficient funds at that moment to, take care of all your obligations? How do you keep your energy where it needs to be in order to grow? And like, you can intellectually know it, but you need to get it from here to, where you're feeling it. And that can be challenging when you are under financial stress. So I'd like you to speak a little bit about that.
I know it's gonna sound a bit crazy, but that's where the rules come in. And the first 6 rules are all what some may say are spiritual rules that I truly believe will help you deal with those, what may look like some issues in the physical reality. But in the non-physical reality, if you can work on your mindset and you work on your feelings and emotions, then abundance must flow to you. And you were talking a little bit more earlier about resistance, so we can talk more about that. But the ways to eliminate the resistance are to do the things in my book. So I'll give you a few, and we talked about giving already, so why don't we start there? Because when you're feeling lack or poverty or scarcity, give. There's always someone less fortunate than you somewhere in this world, right? And by giving as little as $1 to someone on the street who really is less fortunate than you, or giving to a classroom, Donors Give is a great organization that I give to locally for a school that can't afford basic needs for their kids in the classroom. So there's always some one or some group that's less fortunate. And again, by just giving a small amount, you're shifting your mindset around money. You're creating this feeling that you have plenty to spare and share, and then you will. So giving is important. Gratitude is another really important rule. So giving is number 6 in the 9 money rules, and gratitude is number 5. And I tell the story, I'll tell the quick story. This is how the book starts out. It's 105 degrees. Are you kidding me? No, it hasn't gone down since you left. Did you give her the cold compresses? Did you give her the baby Tylenol? Yes, we did. Is there anything else we should do? No. We're going to come right home. This was the conversation I had with my mom in November 2006. My daughter Morgan was not yet 9 months old. And I remember rushing home from the Upper East Side of Manhattan, full of fear and worry and being scared. And like we've already talked about, worry, and I say is just negative future planning. You're thinking about what you don't want to happen. So why not think about what you do want to happen? But I didn't know these concepts back then. And we rushed home. Morgan was pale, not herself. And we gave her more cold compresses, baby Tylenol. I even gave her a cold bath. Her temperature did go down. We called the pediatrician. The pediatrician said, if it doesn't go down further, you got to come in Sunday to the hospital. Well, it did go down further, but on Monday morning, we bring it to the pediatrician's office. She took one look at Morgan and her history and said, get to the emergency room. She needs surgery. We say, is there any way we can avoid this? And she says, no. We get to the hospital. the doctor prepares her for surgery. She's not yet 9 months old, with all these wires, the IV tube, and then they couldn't get the mask over her nose and mouth, so they asked us to hold her down as they put that laughing gas to put her out, and she's struggling. And I remember exactly when I stopped crying, but I do remember the doctor coming out a short while later. It felt like days to me, but a short while later saying she was fine. She came through the operation with flying colors. Point being that today I am so grateful for my daughter Morgan, who's a very intelligent, caring, thoughtful, and healthy daughter. She's 13. And I say, what can you be grateful for today? And who can you be grateful for today? And maybe you could even be grateful for some of the pain and suffering you've gone through in the past, because it makes you more grateful for where you are today. So gratitude is a really powerful emotion. If you can be grateful today for something you want to happen in the future, it's actually been proven that synapses in your brain expand. So I started a gratitude journal 6 years later in 2012, and I recommend to all my clients and everyone out there to write down 5 things they're grateful for in the morning, 5 things they're grateful for at night. And what's even more powerful, Martin Seligman in many of his best-selling books talk about the power of gratitude. If you write down why you're grateful in the evening, even if it's just 3 things, spend 5 minutes. Maybe you build up to this over a few days, but write down why you're grateful. That's even more powerful. So that's why gratitude is another one of the 9 money rules. I talk about being happy, because if you can be happy, imagine if you could be happy all day, every day, despite the challenges in your business. Then there's more and more things that will come into your life to be happy about. Just like if you're grateful and appreciative of certain things in your life, then there's more and more things that will come into your life to be appreciative for. So happiness is another one. And another really powerful rule, which I'd recommend, we talked a little bit about acting as if. Let's talk about visualizing. So visualizing is just thinking about what you want to happen. But it's such a powerful technique, and very few people do it. For 3 to 5 minutes every day. And here's the 6 steps that I recommend doing. So first of all, pick a place that you're going to do it in. Second of all, pick a time that you're going to do it. So you want to be consistent. And then pick how much time you're going to do it for. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Set a timer. And don't chastise yourself if you start thinking about other things, daydreaming about other things or things you have to do during the day. You'll get to it the next day. Don't criticize yourself. But the first step in the actual process, step 4, is to actually write down 3 dreams and desires. Maybe it's you want your business to be profitable, or you want it to, I want my business to help at least 100,000 people become financially free. Think about that and how, and I don't get bogged down in the how of how that happens. Maybe you just want to think about abundance and prosperity and how that feels. But the last 2 steps are really critical. One is so after you write down those 3 dreams and desires, you want to visualize them. The critical 2 parts are, 1, to try to get yourself into that picture that you're visualizing, and then feel the feeling as if it's already happened. So maybe you are dreaming about this dream car, and my recommendation is to think about the end result. You already have the car. You're driving up, I'm on the East Coast here in New York. You're driving up 95 at 85 miles an hour in your Maserati with the top down. It's a convertible. It's blue, and it's got a 457 horsepower, 4.7 liter, and you're flooring it. Your hair is blowing. Well, if you had more hair than me, your hair is blowing in the wind. And you're just feeling so abundant and prosperous and grateful for having had your dream car come into your existence. And you can do that with a dream vacation, traveling, your business. Imagine, you're in this new, maybe you're working from home now. You could envision yourself being at a headquarters in a local town with, surrounded by your 10 or 20 employees, and your business is flourishing and you're feeling so grateful and happy because where you were back in 2019 was not there, right? And so you can visualize all this. It's a really powerful exercise. Doing it every few days, it will create that reality much sooner. So those are a few of the money rules that I recommend for people who are in businesses that maybe are not yet flourishing. The number one thing we've talked about that I've alluded to, and we've talked about a lot today, and is rule number one in the 9 money rules, is belief. Now, if you don't have belief in your business, you're visualizing and then you got this massive doubt that it's going to be a prosperous business, or it's not really truly your dream or your why, then it's going to be really tough for all the rest of it to come in. But when you have absolute faith, and I had absolute faith that I was going to be a hedge fund manager. I have absolute faith that this is my purpose now, to help people become financially free. And I know that this is going to work out over the long term. I'm going to be flourishing and helping people in workshops and small groups and one-on-one and doing seminars and traveling the globe. And I'm not there yet, but I could see myself being there, and I have absolute faith that that's going to happen.
That's fantastic, Joel. I have one more question for you, and then I'm going to open it up to the group if any of you guys have questions. So now that you've been working as a prosperity coach for some time, I'm wondering, do you believe that abundance is accessible to anybody? And is there, without violating confidentiality, is there like an example you can give us of somebody that you've helped turn around their situation with just these relatively simple, practices?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ellen, for the question. It's absolutely very relevant. I talked about it last when speaking, book signing. So yes, absolutely. I absolutely believe abundance is available to anyone. And I'll give you some examples, although these are not destitute people. But one guy read my first book, Mindful Money Management, and he was working as an actuary. And his dream is to be a money manager. But he couldn't see anywhere to get from where he was to where I got to. And so he became, and in just a few months, we worked on his mindset because he didn't believe that it could get done. I taught him what I learned about how to model and analyze financial institutions. He was living and working in Paris. Today, he's working on Wall Street, one step away from his dream. I had another client who, again, not destitute, but he was working as an equity sales guy. He came to me and said, I hate my life. I hate my job. I hate my boss. My compensation's down 80% in 10 years. I got to get out of here. But this is all I've been doing my whole life. How do I change? So first we worked on his mindset to have him believe that something else is possible. I told him he's an amazing salesperson, and he is and was. And he just had to know that and believe it, and then he could sell anything. And so we started working down that path. He had a dream. He started visualizing, I taught him how to visualize. And in December of last year, he achieved his dream of working for a financial technology company as the business development head. I had another client who came to me in massive debt and really didn't know where to start. And he was in a much more difficult situation. He wasn't generating any income. And so we had to work not only on mindset, but on quick processes to reduce that debt quickly so he wouldn't get kicked out of his apartment, things like that. And when I was able to reduce his debt very quickly in just a few months, And then we started working on mindset as well. We did some tactical things like balance transfer cards so that he could extend out 18 months and have some real leeway to create some income. So there's been different people with different things. I did want to say that I want to give listeners who are live and who are listening to the replay a white paper I wrote called 5 Mistakes New Millionaires Make. 5 Mistakes New Millionaires Make, because you all want to be a new millionaire but not make these mistakes if you aren't already. And if you are already a millionaire, let's make sure you don't make them. So if you text to the number 66866, that's the number 66866, one word, 9 money rules. Not the number, because my book is The 9 Money Rules Millionaires Use with the number, but don't use the number, use the word 9 money rules, all one word. You'll text that to 66866 and you'll get that free white paper.
Wow, thank you, Joel. That's awesome. Do you guys on this call have any questions for Joel? You can just unmute.
I can think of one. Joel, you had mentioned, I sound like your second case, though. You kind of described my situation right now with the credit card and everything. It's crazy. So you mentioned the prosperity mindset. How do you recommend? So for me, like on my mind, I woke up at 4:30 this morning. How am I going to pay last month's mortgage on the building for the business? How am I going to make my payroll this week? How am I going to pay the insurance company? All these things are, and I try to just put them aside as best I can, but it's hard to have a prosperity mindset when all these things are chasing me every day. Recommendations, I guess.
The best recommendation is not thinking about it, because it's not helpful. What you're doing is worrying, and worrying is negative future planning. So think about what you do want to happen as opposed to what's happening in the physical reality, what has happened. So think about,
stay present.
Think about manifesting money. Think about generating income for your company. Think about how that could happen. Think about maybe spend 10 minutes every day writing down possibilities of how revenues and income could flow. And there are probably 1,000 different ways that income could flow to you, which you're not thinking about. Like, here's one example. This actually happened. Person's walking down the street in Manhattan, sees a suitcase, a briefcase, picks it up. What the heck? There's a business card on it, calls the business card. The guy says, "Oh my God, don't move." That's my briefcase. Comes up 5 minutes later in his Lamborghini. He says, "You have no idea what's in that briefcase." Hands the woman a check. She says, "No, I can't accept anything. This is, I was just being nice. This is what I do." He said, No, you have no idea. Please take it. Check is for $1 million. So there's 1,000 different ways that money could come to you that you have no idea, that you're not thinking about, right? I'm not saying that way, but
of course,
who knows? I talk about all these different ways in my book. I talk about this actually in the white paper you get. I talk about ways that money could flow to you. There's many, many different ways you can become a millionaire. Maybe you put $25,000 into 4 different stocks, 5 years ago, and you got a 10-bagger in each of those. I mean, that could happen, right? So there's many different ways that money could flow to you. Who knows, right? So I'd write down, like, maybe something happens, you get a new client in your business and it's a big client. Holy cow, like this, this new hospital, whatever, needs a ton of medical equipment. Like, who knows, right? There's so many different ways things can happen. So why not think about what you do want to happen, not worrying about where you are? Because the more you focus on where you are, you can't get out of where you are.
Mm.
And you're just rehashing, right? You're rehashing everything that is in the physical reality as opposed to think about what you do want to happen.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else?
I will reiterate your statement about, I truly believe that there's enough money out there for everybody. And I think when I came to that realization and accepted that some of it could be mine was a big step for me, because I didn't think I deserved it. I didn't think I had worked hard enough. I didn't think I wasn't, the rest of the world was so much bigger than me. And so, yes, I truly believe there's enough for everybody, and I just am going to get my piece, and I'm good with that. I guess my only question would be, any recommendations for, I mean, we're not rolling in cash. I mean, I'm not, but there is occasionally a time where there's a relatively large influx, maybe even 50,000 at a time or something. Is there, what's the best, if I get a bonus check for $50,000, give me one thing I should do with that.
I'd love to, but that would take a lot of time.
Oh, darn it.
I give everybody 30 minutes free. So Mary, sign up for your 30 minutes prosperity coaching free on my website. I gave you the name of the website. It's SALEURMOR.com. But I'm not like everyone else, and people will give you advice knowing nothing about you. Okay? I can't do that. I want to know your assets and earnings and cash flow and tax status and risk tolerance. Most importantly, I want to know your beliefs. Here's my story. I went to a conference I alluded to in December 2015. I went to a personal development conference, and they had this guest speaker speaking about stocks and stock options. And when they were specifically talking about stock options, they made it sound like it was a get-rich-quick scheme. It was 200 people in the room. You don't need much time. You don't need much money. And this is the way the rich people get rich. I was sick to my stomach. All 200 people have different personalities, money personalities as well, but different personalities, different earnings, cash flow, tax status, risk tolerance. How can you prescribe one method to make money to 200 people? It doesn't make any sense, but that's what he did. People ran up afterwards. I had people tap me on the shoulder, whisper in my ear, Joel, does this make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. Each person is different. And most importantly, I need to know your belief. If somebody's come to me and said, look, the stock market's risky, there's no way I'm going to get them to invest in the stock market until I change their belief around the stock market. It's a passion of mine. I believe in it. But I have my clients write down from 1 to 10 their level of belief in each investment they currently own and one they're going to or thinking about owning. And if you're not an 8, 9, or 10, don't go there. And no financial planner or advisor will ever tell you this. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be buying when you should be selling and selling when you should be buying. And my belief doesn't matter. And if you have a financial planner or financial advisor who you gave their money to, well, rule number 9 in the 9 money rules, 8 rules is DIY investing. Do it yourself. Because when you give up responsibility for anything in your life, that does not work. Okay, and I'm going to be controversial here. You're being taught a lie every day by financial institutions. You can't do it. We're better than you. We're the experts. Sorry. They want your money because they're going to charge you 1%, 2%, or 3% each year, every year.
Yeah.
Who's getting
I really
rich?
appreciate that statement, because you don't.
Who's getting rich? They are.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I need to know a lot more about you, Mary. I apologize.
You don't want to know.
No, but $50,000, I'd love to tell you, invest in XYZ stock, but what's your belief? You could say, I have no idea about that stock. It goes down 5% the second day after you buy it, you sell. 6 months later, it's up 100%. I have stories like that all day, every day, because people didn't believe. So what's your belief?
Got it.
So again, my website, Salormor or JoelSalomon.com or Salomor, SALAURMOR.com.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody else have questions for Joel? This was really great, Joel. I appreciate you sharing with us so openly, and I love it when you're controversial. It's great learning, when the conventional wisdom is not so valuable as everybody thinks, So very, very interesting. I think this is a great talk. Anybody else? We'll wrap it up.
I'll ask one more question.
One more question. We've got time.
You mentioned a personal development conference. Obviously, it's an area that you've spent a little time because you've talked about a couple of different conferences. Would you make a recommendation for an entrepreneur as a place to start with some personal development?
Besides my coaching? Well, I'm also a certified infinite possibilities trainer. And on the cover of my book is a quote testimonial from Mike Dooley, who wrote the book Infinite Possibilities. And so I teach the concepts that are in his book. And so that's one course that I'd highly recommend. It's not really a business course at all. It's all about the things we've talked about today. It's all about beliefs and thoughts becoming things. And most importantly, we talk a lot about taking action, because a lot of times people say, well, if I just visualize and meditate and thoughts become things and I have these beliefs, but no, you have to get out into the physical world. When I was trying to raise money for my hedge fund, I didn't just act as if, but I banged the phones. I called tons of insurance companies while I was trying to raise money, right? So you have to take some action as well. But anyway, I found his concepts very valuable and got me to, after I shut down my hedge fund, I got introduced to him in 2016 and became a certified coach for him as well.
That's what I was looking for.
Great question, Mary. Yeah. I think that's where I met you, Joel, was at the Omega Institute.
At the Playing the Matrix conference.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great.
Rosemary,
did you
have a question?
Did you just say, Rosemary, do you have a question? That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say, Joel, is that I found every minute of this very valuable, extremely valuable. I'm partway on some of these things and not on others. What's really what you said was encouraging to me about the banks are lying. Well, the banks or the financial institutions are lying to you every day. And the biggest challenge for me has been to ignore their negativity and telling me what I can't do and how I'm a small business and that I can't have this and I can't have that. And I cannot have their support. And what it's forced me to do is just look elsewhere. So in a way, I used to get really angry, but that ties up energy too. Now I'm not angry anymore. I just say, okay, oh yeah, just tell me I can't do something and for sure I'm going to do it, right? So that was encouraging to hear you validate those of us that are constantly told, no, you can't, you can't, you can't. It's wearing. But also, I like your whole vibe. I like your whole positive vibe. And I fully intend to just buy your book, read your book, and and talk to you for 30 minutes because you're so right about one for sure thing. You're very right. When I discovered what I'm supposed to be doing on the planet, there's just like nothing that's going to stop me. And it's good to hear you validate that because there's not too many people out there that will validate and support until you really make it. Then everybody's going to tell you that they knew you could do it and they could have done it better. So thank you for those of us that are in the trenches, reaching for the stars, but just haven't quite gotten there yet, and that could use your valuable coaching, actually. Your valuable coaching.
I really appreciate your comments. And yes, I would say first thing, write down in a spreadsheet the numbers 1 to 100. And next to 1 to 99, write no. And next to 100, write yes. And every time somebody says no to you, cross out a no. You're one step closer to yes. And it's very unlikely you're going to get 99 no's. I did this when I was raising money for my hedge fund. Got a lot of no's, but I didn't come anywhere close to 99. And it's another positive technique to just say, okay, I'm one step closer. I'm one step closer.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you. Never thought of doing that.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one. I was always doing the baseball thing in my mind. So I read the sports page every day just to see, did they win today? Did they lose today? And to remind myself they strike out more than they win.
Right.
And you don't see them crying in their beards or whatever, you know. Yeah. Oh, that's very valuable. 3
times,
Joel.
every batter gets out, and they're the best hitter in baseball if they get out 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah, and some of my favorite people, like, Clayton Kershaw always had bad days too.
Absolutely.
And you don't see him crying or whining or carrying on. He's a winner, right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Joel, this was awesome. Do you have any final wrap-up word of wisdom? I want to honor your time, but I just don't want to quite let you go yet. Because we're all entrepreneurs. Just one more nugget.
I'll reiterate doubt to doubt. But the other thing that Mary said was about working hard. And I will tell you, that's just a limiting belief. You're told every day, if you work really, really hard, you'll be rich and successful. And I found in 2008, so I got divorced in December 2007. And 2008, I said, okay, this is my first job. I get paid for my performance. I'll just work really, really hard, and I'll make a ton of money. And you heard earlier in 2008, I didn't make a ton of money. I barely broke even. I did make a little bit of money, but I barely broke even. And I was killing myself working 75, 80 hours a week. And I realized towards the end of 2008 that if this continued, that I wasn't going to be around for my kids that I was supporting. So I did that to, okay, I can work smarter and more productively. And I changed my thoughts, and then I changed my actions by, I'm going to work half as much. I'm going to enjoy some time as well. I started to be happier. I was present with my kids. In 2008, I was on my BlackBerry all the time with my kids, who were 4 and 2 at the time. And then I started going out on dates in 2009 and seeing friends. And 2009, I made 10 times what I made in 2008. So I don't believe you have to work really, really hard to be rich and successful. Actually, you want to have your money work for you, and then you'll be rich and successful. I mean, these people who are working 4 or 5 jobs, it's not how it works.
That's a really good reminder. And we had, every Friday I do a call, I call it the Friday 10K Talks. And last week was a great speaker, a motivational speaker, but he kept saying, he's like, you're going to be dead one day. So really be mindful of how valuable our time is. And that's what he was saying, is work smarter, work, 4-hour days, really intense for an hour, give yourself a break, whatever works for you. But that made a lot of sense to me. That's like what you just said, like work half the time and you can make more money. And I think that is true. So Interesting. That was a good one to leave us with, us
Thank you.
business owners, because there's a temptation to do the opposite. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
working 16-hour days is just counterproductive.
No badge of honor. No. Yeah. Nobody
And look,
wants.
I've been there, done that. I've
Yeah.
absolutely been there, done that. But
Yeah,
I know better now.
for sure. Sure. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Joel. I'll make sure everybody has the link to your website and your book. And all the best of luck with it. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you, Ellen. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for
everybody.
everybody.
Have a good one.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.